Relationship psychodynamics of genders. Ashwini Ascendant, masculine Nakshatra ruled by Ketu in Aries. Ashwini rising places the Ascendant in fiery Aries and the 7th house in Aries Libra. This naturally sets up a relationship polarity between initiative and response, impulse and harmony, self-focus and relational intelligence. The Nakshatras involved, Ashwini in the 1st and parts of Chitra, Swati, and Vishaka in the 7th, bring a dynamic interplay between raw masculine charge and nuanced feminine diplomacy. Ashwini natives feel compelled to act first and process later. They lead relationships instinctively, often jumping in with speed, force, and purpose, but unconsciously attract partners who slow them down, mirror them, and demand balance. When masculine planets like Mars or Sun are in the 1st house in Ashwini, the core identity becomes hyperactive and sharply self-reliant. This native is drawn to action-oriented roles in relationships, but can unintentionally overpower the partnership space. If the 7th house contains a feminine planet like Venus or Moon in Swati, the partner is graceful, communicative, and values emotional reciprocity. The masculine Ashwini energy initiates, while the Swati partner refines and redirects the impulse into dialogue or relational flow. The relationship thrives on the dance between assertion and aesthetic negotiation, unless the Ashwini drive refuses to be slowed or Swati diplomacy turns avoidant. If a feminine planet like Venus or Moon sits in the 1st house in Bharani or Kritika, the native appears softer or more emotionally charged, despite the assertive Aries backdrop. The inner masculine is flavored with sensuality or nurturance, and the native may attract a masculine planet like Mars or Sun in Chitra or Vishaka in the 7th, creating a reversal where the partner takes charge. This setup can flip traditional relational scripts. The Ashwini native leads emotionally or aesthetically, while the Libra partner may act decisively or dominate intellectual space. The psychodynamics here involve deep polarity tension: who drives, who reflects, and how direction and reception are balanced. When neuter planets like Mercury or Saturn are in the 1st house, especially in Ashwini or early Bharani, the self is more observational, strategic, or delayed in action. These natives still carry the Ashwini impulse but temper it with analysis or restraint. If the 7th house contains another neuter or feminine planet in Swati or Vishaka, the relationship often becomes cerebral or idealistic, built on shared values, principles, or causes. Love may feel like an alliance of mutual vision, but can lack spontaneity unless other planets inject emotional or physical desire. If both 1st and 7th house contain masculine planets, say Sun in Ashwini and Mars in Chitra, the relationship can become competitive or power-oriented. Both parties seek to lead, express, and command. The challenge is co-creation without control struggles. This dynamic suits high-stakes partnerships, entrepreneurs, activists, or visionaries who build together. But if unbalanced, it risks ego clashes and emotional disconnection. When both houses contain feminine planets, such as Moon in Bharani rising and Venus in Swati in the 7th, the entire relationship field softens. The native appears emotionally intuitive, but craves relational stability and beauty. This pairing often focuses on shared intimacy, aesthetic resonance, and emotional rituals. Yet, without a stronger masculine or neuter anchor, this union might lack assertive direction or long-term resilience under stress. Neuter planets across both houses, like Mercury in Ashwini rising and Saturn in Vishaka 7th, create a partnership based on systems, learning, and inner discipline. These natives often delay serious relationships until intellectual clarity or vocational maturity is reached. Love is filtered through mental and karmic evaluation more than emotion or desire. Ashwini rising creates a strong push toward life and love, but the Libra 7th house insists on relational equality, aesthetic exchange, and diplomatic pacing. The psychological growth lies in integrating the fast, heroic masculine impulse of Aries with the refined, harmonizing, relational wisdom of Libra. The planetary combinations in these signs and their nakshatras reveal whether the relationship plays out as a chase, a mirror, a classroom, or a battlefield, and whether that polarity leads to tension or transcendence. Punarvasu Ascendant, masculine nakshatra ruled by Jupiter in Gemini. Punarvasu rising places the Ascendant in airy mutable Gemini, while the 7th house falls in fiery Sagittarius. This axis activates a relationship dynamic between curiosity and conviction, adaptability and idealism. The nakshatras involved, Punarvasu in the first and Mula, Purva Ashada, and part of Uttara Ashada in the seventh, create a contrast between the gentle, cyclic masculine archetype of the healer and the passionate, principled visionary. With Punarvasu rising, the native seeks safety in shared beliefs, stories, and intellectual resonance. Love is experienced as a return journey to a sense of spiritual home, often after disruption or loss. When a masculine planet like Jupiter or Sun is placed in the first house in Punarvasu, the native projects wisdom, optimism, and emotional generosity. They become the philosophical initiator in relationships, offering guidance, nurturing, and clarity. If the seventh house contains a feminine planet like Venus or Moon, especially in Purva Ashada or Uttara Ashada, the partner brings emotional depth, sensual devotion, and spiritual fire. This dynamic sets up a dance between mental clarity and emotional richness. The Punarvasu native may try to hold space intellectually, while the partner moves through layers of feeling, faith, and devotion. The challenge lies in bridging intuitive ideals with emotional complexity. When a feminine planet sits in the first, like Venus or Moon in Punarvasu, the native expresses their identity through relational intelligence and spiritual aesthetics. The masculine container of Gemini becomes infused with tenderness, yielding a person who leads with empathy and idealistic care. If the seventh house contains a masculine planet like Mars or Sun in Mula, the partner may be more direct, forceful, or even radical. This pairing can generate magnetic tension, the emotionally nuanced native facing a karmically intense or truth-cutting partner. There may be struggles with emotional safety versus existential truth. The Punarvasu native wants connection, while the Mula partner may demand personal evolution through upheaval. If neuter planets like Mercury or Saturn occupy the first house in Punarvasu, the self becomes more analytical or restrained. The native initiates relationships through logic, skill, or duty rather than desire. If the seventh house hosts a feminine planet in Purva Ashada or Ravati, the relationship tends to be one-sided emotionally at first. The partner may expect vulnerability or responsiveness the native doesn't naturally display. Yet over time, such a pairing can become powerfully complementary, anchoring intellect with emotion, structure with fluidity. When both first and seventh houses are occupied by masculine planets, for instance, Jupiter in Punarvasu and Sun or Mars in Purva Ashada, the relationship becomes a platform for shared ideals, growth, and pursuit of a greater purpose. These are relationships where two strong belief systems either merge into joint missions or clash until one evolves. The connection thrives when mutual respect allows for intellectual expansion and emotional courage, but it collapses if rigidity blocks evolution. A pairing of feminine planets on both ends, such as Moon in Punarvasu and Venus in Mula, forms a spiritually romantic field. These relationships are emotionally devotional, often echoing past life memories or ancestral themes. Yet, the masculine core of Punarvasu seeks reason and logic even within this heart-centered frame, which can sometimes lead to internal confusion or over-idealization. It takes balance to keep the spiritual and the sensual in harmony. With neuter planets in both houses, for example, Mercury in Punarvasu and Saturn in Uttara Ashada, the relationship tends to be pragmatic, long-term, and karmically earned. It unfolds slowly, tested by time, principles, and maturity. The emotional content is often subdued, but the stability and intellectual foundation can be immense if cultivated with intention. Punarvasu rising creates a need for renewal through partnership, not through drama, but through shared vision, kindness, and spiritual integrity. The native feels most fulfilled in relationships where they are mentally engaged, emotionally respected, and spiritually in rhythm. With Sagittarius on the seventh house, partnerships act as the path to higher dharma. The ideal match is someone who not only loves, but also believes, and challenges the Punarvasu native to keep returning, rethinking, and rerouting themselves in deeper truths. Pushya Ascendant, masculine nakshatra ruled by Saturn, in Cancer. With Pushya rising, the Ascendant falls in Cancer, a watery, sensitive, and emotionally foundational sign, while the seventh house lies in Capricorn, a sign ruled by Saturn and shaped by duty, realism, and structure. This polarity places the masculine nakshatra of Pushya in a sign associated with maternal care, emotional nourishment, and intuitive security, while the seventh house reflects the need for partners who are grounded, disciplined, and focused on worldly responsibility. The nakshatras involved, Pushya in the first, and Shravana, Dhanishta, and part of Shatabisha in the seventh, highlight the interplay between emotional protection and social contribution. The Pushya native identifies as a provider of safety, often taking on emotional burdens in relationships, while unconsciously seeking partners who offer stability, predictability, or intellectual detachment. When a masculine planet like Saturn or Sun is placed in the first house in Pushya, especially conjoined with the ascendant, the personality becomes emotionally contained, quietly authoritative, and deeply committed to service. These natives often play the emotional backbone in relationships, showing up even when unappreciated. If the seventh house contains a feminine planet like Venus or Moon in Shravana or Dhanishta, the partner becomes the expressive counterpart, often emotional, artistic, or fluid. The relationship dynamic reflects the Pushya native's role as the steady anchor to a more expressive or exploratory partner. However, if emotional receptivity is not reciprocated, the native may feel like they're carrying the emotional weight alone. When a feminine planet like Moon or Venus sits in the first, the emotional richness of Cancer and Pushya is amplified. The native appears nurturing, deeply intuitive, and relationship-oriented, but the underlying masculine nakshatra tones still carry a silent expectation of control and dependability. If the seventh house hosts a masculine planet like Mars or Sun in Dhanishta or Shatabisha, the partner may be ambitious, structured, or emotionally reserved. The Pushya native may try to over-nurture or over-accommodate in response to the partner's stoicism, leading to emotional burnout unless balance is consciously created. Love becomes a tug between care and control, softness and discipline. If neuter planets like Mercury or Ketu are in the first, especially within Pushya, the native becomes less overtly emotional and more observant or philosophically detached. These individuals offer subtle support in relationships and are most comfortable behind the scenes. If the seventh house hosts another neuter planet in Shatabisha, the relationship tends to form around shared missions, healing, innovation, or service. Emotionally, these partnerships are quiet, often low on overt drama, but high on mutual endurance and karmic processing. When both houses contain masculine planets, for instance, Saturn in Pushya rising and Mars in Shravana or Dhanishta in the seventh, the dynamic becomes stoic and purpose-driven. These relationships often revolve around shared responsibilities, long-term goals, or family duties. Love may not be verbally expressed but is demonstrated through action, protection, and longevity. The emotional field is subdued, and unless softened by other placements, it can become transactional or heavily burdened by external obligations. A setup with feminine planets in both houses, Moon in Pushya rising and Venus in Shravana 7th, creates a deeply emotional, nurturing, and romantic relationship landscape. These individuals are naturally inclined toward creating emotional sanctuaries with their partners, but the underlying Capricorn 7th house demands structure. If emotional softness is not supported by mutual life planning or practical alignment, the relationship can feel safe but stagnant. With neuter planets across both ends, like Mercury in Pushya and Saturn in Shatabisha, the connection is often tested over time. These natives seek emotional functionality, partnerships that work, heal, and endure. Love becomes a practice, not a performance. These are charts where relationships mirror karmic balancing rather than emotional highs. Pushya ascendants offer constancy, depth, and protection in love, but must learn that emotional fulfillment requires receiving, not just giving. With Capricorn in the 7th, they are drawn to dependable, ambitious, or emotionally guarded partners who push them to define clearer boundaries and realistic expectations. Their journey in relationships is about transforming quiet devotion into conscious intimacy, where emotional giving is not a role, but a mutual ritual.